Ted Kaczynski was likely right, will get away from us. We will be controlled by the thing that we made. All those are bad. Like, that's just bad. And we need to say unequivocally, it's bad. It's bad to be controlled by machines. If it's bad for people, then we should strangle it in its crib right now.
Right.
You can't stop it. So the first question you have to ask yourself is it possible for governments to stop the development of AI throughout the world? Is that possible? Obviously, the answer is no. Somebody could be in a secret data center somewhere you don't know about. We couldn't stop the spread of the pandemic. Where did that come from? A lab. The disease was the same name as the lab, and we couldn't stop it. Why? Well, the government knew, but a lot of other people didn't know.
The disease is the same name as the lab.
And we couldn't stop it. So the same thing would happen with AI. Tucker Carlson would say, we have to stop AI. But then somewhere in some lab, in some Chinese Wuhan bat-ridden, rabies-filled lab, but this one's a computer lab room, they're going to be developing AI that would destroy and crush. They could put AI in a drone, fly it over somewhere, and they could put it in a boat. They could put it in anything.
The disease is the same name as the lab.
We can't stop it. We can't stop that either. That's probably even more scarier than the AI to me. Is the, messing around with the kind of the infections and all that kind of stuff. That's probably more dangerous. Believe it or not, especially short term. Tucker's lost on faith here because he's arguing the only person that could stop the advancement of AI is God. And that's not. Humans, government can't act like God, can't stop something that's happening in the world. So now you have to think about what's the answer. The answer is in the Constitution. They've already had this debate. Whoever has the arms, that's why it says 2A is arms, not gun. It says arms. That means any weapon. Nuclear, all that other stuff. Yes, nuclear people should be able to have it now that you can't logistically do it. But let's look at it from a world standpoint. The Second Amendment is a populist amendment, just like the First Amendment. It's saying that the power of free speech has to be distributed to as many people as possible. Now, I understand people get confused here. I understand these are God-given rights, but just because you have the God-given right for free speech doesn't mean the government's not going to squash you over it. So you have God-given rights, and now we live in a country that we're losing that, but still better than most other countries abides by we can't, you said this thing on YouTube, the government itself can't go after you. But the government's doing end rounds on that. We're it's uncomfortable, so the company you work with could fire you because they want to be good with the government. But the idea of the First Amendment is as many people as possible have to have the right to speak. Otherwise, it leads to tyranny. And because the pen is mightier than the sword, that's why it's the first. But you still do have swords as well, and that's what the Second Amendment says. Everybody has the right to keep and bear arms. Why? Because the more people that have the right to keep and bear arms, the safer things are. You don't see a lot of the stuff popping off that you see in these areas where they have very heavy gun restrictive laws. Why? Because people who don't obey the law still have guns. That's the same thing with artificial intelligence. What are you going to do? Write a law that says you can't develop artificial intelligence? You think that's going to stop Apple? You think that's going to stop IBM? Or you think that's going to stop Microsoft? You think that's going to stop NVIDIA? You think that's going to stop every company out there from developing AI and working with AI companies? Of course not. So all you're going to do is try to stop it from legal people who could use it to help defend against that. It is exactly the same take as the Second Amendment. We've already solved this problem, Tucker. The power must be distributed to as many people as possible. That's the only check and balance against the weapon. Let's look at the atomic bomb. When America dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we were the only country with nuclear power. That's the only reason those bombs were dropped. The nuclear weapon is the two-way of countries. If you distribute the nuclear weapon to as many countries as possible, then you're going to have fewer nuclear weapons flying. If America was still the only country with nuclear power, guess what? That nuclear bomb would have been dropped multiple times since then. But it's the fear of, that's why we say those no gun zones, those are dangerous zones. It's simple. Now more countries have nuclear power. I'm not advocating for other countries to have nukes, but I will say we had to develop nukes. That was the Oppenheimer debate, where is this the ethical thing to do? Well, you have to. Even in a libertarian utopian. I'm very strong on defense. That's why I like the Iron Dome. It's a defensive system. I'm very strong on defense. I mean, I like the concept of it. Let's not get twisted about how I feel about that country. The defense has to be so strong, like the Terrans in StarCraft. They're the humans. You have the Zerg, the Protoss, at least in StarCraft 1. In StarCraft 1, it's a video game where you're fighting. And I like the humans. They were defensive. They had tanks that could lock in, and they were very good defensively. It was more difficult to take over areas, but they were very strong defensively. And I very much believe in that, in having the nuclear weapon. I do not support that we drop the nukes on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And Tucker talked about that in the interview. I do not support that. I do support having the nuclear weapon as a two-way. Like, we got this just in case. It's a break open in case of emergency. Because I know at some point you're going to get it. Now, we all have it, or the major countries have it. Nobody's pulled that trigger. Why? Because it would just be flying. It could be just flying all over the place. The same applies to artificial intelligence. If the power is distributed to as many people as possible, the power will be checked. I don't care how sentient it becomes. If you, and how that looks, I'm not even going to get into that on this. I just want to make sure that Tucker, we're on the same page here, that your take was bad. You distribute that power, then the power will be checked. Because anywhere you go, that power could be checked by somebody or a group of people. If you don't do that, it will become tyrannical based on the private companies that have the power and nobody else does, or the government. It's that same triangle: government power, private company power, people power. I am always, in every single scenario, a populist looking to see that power given to people. And that's my problem with the Tucker take. I have a serious problem with it. And Tucker needs to talk with Brian Romelli. Brian Romelli, Tucker's out of he's over his skis on this topic. He's out of his realm on the topic of technology. He doesn't use social media even. I mean, he doesn't use email even. He's very good on faith. When we talk about technology, go back, hold on. He's acting the same way leftists do on 2A. What do leftists say? Oh, the guns are too powerful. We need government to write laws to restrict them. It's the same take.
Middle MAGA.